We are officially live on YouTube.
Just sent. Okay. Come on, come on, come on. Hey, did you get it? Okay, all right. Says she's opening up, I think she's traveling. She's opening up her laptop right now. No, it's not. Council organization. Um,
Curtis, we can't hear you.
come on, come on.
While we're waiting, I could remind you all that we have library night at the Indians baseball game coming up, which you are all invited to attend on July 20th.
I'll be in Hawaii, can't make the game.
No, I don't think you're going to catch much baseball out there. Nope. Well, other board members are going to have to for you, Pat. But for those of you who are a little newer to the board and haven't had that opportunity, every year the Indians provide us an opportunity to really celebrate the summer reading program at Victory Field. And so
there she
is. Some of the children win tickets as part of their summer reading club prizes. And that is the night that everyone comes. So hello, Dr. Murtaza.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love baseball games.
It's on the 20th, so check your calendars. Curtis, you want to unmute there for us?
I sincerely apologize. I'm on vacation and I haven't even been checking my email. So please accept my apology. The link was sent, but I hadn't opened up anything. I was trying to take a much needed vacation after
Girl,
years
I
of no
know.
vacation.
Our superintendent gave everybody this week off for rest and restoration.
Yes, Sarasha.
Yeah, I don't even know what that means. So let's move. Okay. Curtis, you still on mute.
He's frozen.
Oh dear.
Oh, he is. I need to come out of this.
Good. Oh, come on, Curtis.
Pretty smile.
Yeah, well, that's a nice smile. You're right.
But if you're on vacation, you shouldn't be in your office. You should be on a beach somewhere.
Well, we
Okay.
just came back from a family gathering. I had 11 of my grandchildren,
Oh, that's
and
right.
Ahmed was there with his wife.
Oh, that's
Another one of my
wonderful.
sons came with from New Orleans
Oh,
with two, and another one from North Carolina with two. I mean,
that's
it was beautiful.
wonderful.
It was absolutely beautiful. I just got back in. I didn't check email the whole time.
That's good. Yeah. Okay, Curtis is back
Curtis
with
is back. You're muted,
now
Curtis.
you're on mute.
Somebody
Yeah, I
said
don't
they
know.
wanna-
I'm having bad connectivity problem. It goes down and then it comes back up and then everybody freezes for some reason. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. The reason why I wanted to make sure we all met for discussion of the proposed climate study. I know at our last board meeting, there's going to be some action items that were going to take place in the next couple of weeks. And so I at least wanted to have a committee meeting and get with Dr. Murtadas so she can let us know where she's at with that. And then if we have any questions, I know it's probably going to impact some other committees as it relates to finance and all of that. So at least see what direction, we want to go over in the next couple of weeks, as discussed at our last meeting. So Dr. Murtada, I'll hand it over to you and see what you were thinking, and then we can go from there.
Thank you so very much for the opportunity just to be able to provide leadership for this important climate study. As I said in the document that was handed out, I see this as an opportunity for us to do something beyond a simple survey. I looked at the survey that was conducted, I think it was 2017. I don't have it in front of me here, but the survey that was done by an external body. And I saw the recommendations that it made, and it sounded as if, and this is absolutely a biased opinion, it sounded as if it were an opportunity for them to make far more money. They made recommendations that everybody take more of their classes that they offered. And I found that to be despicable. Sometimes external bodies do good work, but when I read what they had recommended, it sounded like, okay, make sure that there was more pay, make sure there were a number of recommendations. But when I read to the end of it, it made it very clear that the type of climate study that I wanted to lead for the library and for our community was far more comprehensive. And so I had written down a number of notes here, and I want to share with you some of the thoughts. First and foremost, that it be composed of individuals that were included in the library, that is, members of the Equity Committee, at least two members of the Equity Committee. I felt that that was very important because they have made a commitment to working on issues of equity as well. I also thought it was very important to have someone from the community, at least two people from the community, and not just African American, someone that represented cultural diversity, a white person, whatever. But I want to make sure that someone from the community, two people from the community, were involved as well. And I thought that was important too. I wanted to make sure that someone with a library background was involved as well. And so one of my colleagues from IUPUI, who leads our library studies program, has agreed to also be a part of this work so that it's not IU centric, it's not library centric, nor is it centric in terms of the community, that we bring together a group of individuals from different perspectives and that they would be able to also contribute from their various knowledges. And I thought that was critically important. So two from the equity, two from the community, two from IUPUI, which includes me and the other person. I also thought it was very important to recognize that we have individuals who are members of different organizations that are related. And I thought, okay, I don't want this to be too large and cumbersome. But when we wanted to start doing this work would be a reflection of different organizations that are partners to this work. And I thought someone from the foundation would be important as well, because they help with raising funds, or either from CICF, Central Indiana Community Foundation. And I landed on Central Indiana Community Foundation because they have been a critical part of providing support for the library. And so the individuals from these different organizations would be very important. Central Indiana Community Foundation, two from Equity, two from the from IUPUI, one person, of course, who leads the work as well. And I thought if this is acceptable to this group, that would provide some well-balanced purposes and pay attention to what the community says as well. Your thoughts, please.
So would this be like a committee? So it looks like a committee of 5 or 6 people.
7 people.
7 people. And then how would this, like, how would the committee be chosen?
By me and another person, preferably by either you or Pat Payne. Pat has served this board for a long time. You are the chair of this committee. So either you or Pat be a part of helping to select the committee. I will submit the names to you and their qualifications to make sure that they are acceptable to you. But I believe that Pat, with her years of experience in dealing with equity work, and you as the chair, should definitely make a decision about who are the final individuals to be on this work. One of the reasons too why it was important that it not just be me is because I didn't want anyone to feel like, okay, Carla is the only one, but I will work with leading the work in terms of analysis. I will ask the committee to also work with me in terms of being able to do the advisory work of it. And finally, to make sure that as we develop this, it is a cooperative structure. I see that as very important. If we don't pay attention to what the community is telling us and that they are and representatives are involved, then we miss the opportunity as a public serving institution to really do this work in a cooperative way. It calls for what I call, and not just me, but researchers call collaborative inquiry. And this collaborative inquiry approach is one that gives us realizable goals. And after we finish this work, we'll have some goals to work through. But I want it to be so that goals are accomplished throughout the process rather than waiting for a whole year for change to affect. We want to have, and what Tribble called some relief. Hazel Tribble used the word relief with me, and she used that word in a good way, not in a bad way, but she said, you know, there are so many tensions that are arising. She's been contacted, you've been contacted. How do we actually put into effect short-term and long-term goals? Does that help a little bit, Curtis?
Yeah, it does. I was just seeing how like the committee would be formed, and then what would be the primary focus of the committee during that, because I know that we wanted to look at some external, resources and how would that committee guide us down that pathway, so that we can have, that dialogue with the committee, but focuses on, I know, some external components to it as well.
Absolutely. Let me say one other thing in regards to that. I think that making sure too that we have an understanding of what inquiry is. Inquiry is a process that's not only evaluative, it is also research. It means that we're studying what we do. That's why going beyond a survey is so very important. We want to be able to have data and information on which we can make decisions. And sometimes what happens is that we miss that.
You're on mute, Carla.
We miss the opportunity to use the data in a way to inform decision making. And I think that effort needs to be able to serve a broad purpose for the library, one that's specific, but also that offers us specific and realizable goals. Let me stop right there. I'm sorry, Curtis. I wanted to make sure that was very clear.
Oh, no, that was clear.
Realizable goals to come from this data.
Carla,
Okay.
you probably already responded to this, but again, the trust level
Yes.
is very, very important. And so when people say, well, I don't know if we can trust this process because there are people on the board who are involved in the process, and we want an external component here so that there will be no reason to not trust them. How do you respond to that?
I think that trust is something that you really have to work on. And thank you for raising that issue, Pat. That's an excellent point. One of the things that is important, and one of the reasons why I stepped up to this, is that I don't have this long history with the board. I have a short history with the board. In fact, it's so short that I feel like I'm still learning. And that's what a good researcher does. But also, and this was most important to me, is that we have not just a single entity from the external to the board to do this work. Because you can get people that are external, but they don't know what's going on. Community people from CICF, people on the equity committee, people who are involved and care is important. These are relationships that have been built for a good while. And so my being able to pay attention to who's involved, who cares about the library, is very important. Our community cares about it. The equity committee cares about it. The board members care about it. And CICF cares about it. And IUPUI cares about it. You know, these are all entities that care deeply about the library. I also want to make sure that we know that we have someone from the schools that are on this board. That's why I reference community person, a person from a library, person who has led a library in a school corporation that would also serve on this committee. I think part of this is also thinking about how does trust get built? And so if we're transparent in all what we do, that will be critical. Names of the individuals who'll be working on it, that they're vetted by, that they're also paid attention to in terms of making sure we get information out to people on a consistent and regular basis. Trust can be built. It doesn't take a long time, but it can be easily broken.
Mm-hmm.
I think
So-
those four things are key to this process. One, that it's not just some external entity that does not care about the library. That's so important. Two, that we are always transparent about what we do. Who is also very important, critically important, and that we're constantly sending communication that's tied to the transparency, of course.
Mhm. So I think a good start, and I like the idea of this committee, and then we'll look at their different backgrounds and how they will mesh into the whole committee as a whole. And one other thing I would like to see too, if you don't mind, I know that there was a lot of work that was done on the strategic planning committee that overlaps to a lot of the things that are going to be looked at as far as racial equity and all of that type of stuff. And it goes actually beyond, the racial equity, piece of it, but it also tailors into like businesses and everything else. But I know right now we're focused on the staff, but I think it would be critically important too that we have, or how would that look with having the staff involved at least, because they worked, a great deal on our strategic plan when we did it as a board, to see how would that work with making sure that like staff like Jackie and all of them would be involved with the committee, or how would that look, you know what I mean, as an overall picture, to make sure we still guide our way down through the strategic plan, but also looking at some of the issues related to some of the, some of the questions that came up at our last board meeting with racial equality and some of the issues that the staff has seen.
Good. Well, that's the reason for at least 2 members of the task force being from the Equity Council.
Right.
And Garrett Morgan had said that he would help out with any kind of data and helping to work with it. So I thought, okay, good. He's not on the task force, but he would also be consulted. But 2 members of the Equity Council are staff members, 2 members from
library?
the Equity Council. That's right, the Library Equity Council.
Okay.
And there are some really good, hardworking, and some of them were also on the Strategic Planning Committee as well.
Okay. So what would their roles be, at least like the people that come? So do they bring the internal expertise from the library, or how would that look?
That's perfect.
As their specific roles.
The folks from the Equity Council bring their expertise because they've been a part of the library. They should have worked at least 5 years or more in the library. So they know what's going on, what are the opportunities, but also what are the challenges. Folks from the community who have been connected to the library in some way, shape, or form, absolutely, they would bring expertise as well. But their community lens is so very important. How are they connected in the community? That's why I noted the individual who works in the library in a school corporation. The other persons from CICF who have been working with and supporting of the library is extremely important as well. So Community Equity Council, and to make sure that we're doing this work, their purview is to make sure that we're doing this in a transparent way. And that's what I was saying earlier in terms of trust, making sure that they come back to the Equity Council. A couple of members from the Equity Council coming back and talking to the Equity Council, talking to the rest of the library staff as well. We have over 575 people working in the library, making sure that we have strong representation from the library staff who pay attention to equity will be critical to that.
Okay. So what we're saying probably here in the next couple of weeks, so the committee and the board will look at the individuals, the proposed individuals as relates to that. And then
I was going to bring that to you. I was going to bring those individuals' names and their short bios to you and to Pat. Will that be acceptable?
Yes. And then as well as Hope, because Hope is on the committee as well. To make
Sounds
sure
good.
she has that.
Well, Hope's gonna be chairing the committee, isn't she? Isn't that what I heard at the last board meeting?
I'm sorry.
Isn't Hope gonna be the new chair of the committee? Isn't that what I heard at the last board meeting?
Yes. So I'll move over to facilities, and then Hope over to this committee. But I will remain on this committee because I'm laser focused in on making sure, we look at all the different aspects, that have been presented, especially over time that, that we have, just like Dr. Murtada. I'm fairly new as well to the board too. So it brings in a different perspective, but right. Yes. But I do want to emphasize, we have the strategic plan, put in place, but that at least that's a guideline for us to look at, moving forward as far as making sure all these components are met. But when we're looking at the staff alone, how do we focus in on that? How do we make sure that the staff at the library is also included into that discussion? Because we don't want to leave out staff, from the library and being an intricate part, because if we're trying to look at change or look at other things that we need to focus in on, we can't do that without having their input as well, because I know that we're gonna have a couple people, with the library,
what staff are you talking about, Curtis? Because we already said we were gonna have staff.
Right. So I do think that the CEO should be a part of that. Maybe, and the reason why, because the CEO is part of the staff, is the overall umbrella. So if you're looking at trying to ensure that we're looking at change, you know what I mean? We have to have those people included, because you can't leave them out and then try to throw them into the mix later. I wouldn't think that that would be the best option to do.
Curtis, we talking about trust level here. If Jackie, with all due respect to you, Jackie, and your position, Jackie cannot be on this committee. I don't see that happening because
I'm not saying being on the committee, but actually be in that focus group, in the conversation with the committee.
Everybody on the board
Oh,
be in the
absolutely.
conversation.
Absolutely.
Right,
When
but
I
I just wanna make-
when I laid out the methodology, it's no question there will be interviews, there will be focus groups, and the largest number of focus groups will be right there within the library. We've got to interview and pay attention to what Jackie's thoughts are. She's critical to
Right.
getting more understanding about how she sees leadership. There's no question about that. Jackie, that's an important part of understanding your lens and the lens of the other administrators too. There will be focus groups. I put that in the actual submission to the board. Focus
Right.
groups, interviews, making sure that we have surveys, all of the different methodologies for this inquiry, this collaborative inquiry, are going to be critical. And the strategic plan that was worked on, that Garrett and Terry and Jose and I really led, it was not done without Jackie's guidance. You know, that was critically important. But it also gave us a way of looking at issues of some equity, just as you pointed out, Curtis. I didn't understand that any other way. She must be a part of this study.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe I just want to make sure, because I know all of us are leaders in our own capacity. You know, sometimes when you have groups or committees and focus groups, you know, sometimes that takes away from the leadership being able to lead their people. You know what I mean? And they find different avenues, in which that's fine. You know what I mean? Because some people go to other people and say, hey, I feel comfortable and talk to you about one thing. People call me, people call you with some of those issues. But, you know, it's making sure management still has the ability to manage without, you know, people, you know, just circumventing that process, but also making sure that we as a committee, we as a board still focuses in on, you know, the root issues and causes of why people are, you know, afraid to talk on one issue or not afraid to talk on another issue. I believe that's critically important, because a lot of people won't even, you know, say, hey, I don't feel comfortable in talking to any other staff, but I feel comfortable in talking with you. But we also have to look at, and just, this is just my opinion, as far as, you know, making sure that there's still, you know what I mean, management in place and being able to manage the people, but also as we guide through this process here, you know what I mean, really hone in on some of those people that might not get the mission statement of what we as a board are looking at, what, you know, what the mission statement was put out in our strategic plan. You know, because we are going to have some of those people that aren't willing to make change, but we have to make change ourselves as far as the board, to let those people understand, hey, you know, your activity is not acceptable. This is what has been brought out to us. But I guess that was a roundabout way of saying that, but I at least want to make sure that they still have the ability to manage, you know, on all levels within the library, but also as we focus in on the issues that were presented when we were at our board meeting, because those are very important. And I'm glad that we're looking at this committee. The group of people that you have identified here is very good. And I think this is going to be great as we look at it, because they're going to see a lot of different perspectives that I would probably never even see them, you know, myself. So I'm really glad there's a lot of people engaged into this. The people that you chose makes a lot of sense as we move forward with, you know, digging deeper into some of the issues that have been presented to us as a board, not only in a public setting, but also in a private setting. So, I mean, and so this would be, so you said this would come, you know, you'll send it out to the committee, and then we'll look at those people and then try to see, I guess, look at I know you're going to, you know, choose people that have a wealth of knowledge and background into this. So, I mean, this is your level, you know, you're right on it with this. And I appreciate you taking the helm with this as well. So I look forward to seeing the people who have been identified as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And we're working on a survey instrument as well. One of my colleagues at IUPUI has done a number of quantitative studies. And so it's mixed methods, qualitative and quantitative. And so people who want to remain anonymous can fill out the surveys as well. And that's the kind of instrument that was used in the past, but it's never adequate when you're trying to really uncover a lot more information and develop understanding. I'm not sure of, Jackie, I'm asking you, I'm not sure of what Curtis is saying in regards to your role. What were you thinking in regards to your role, Jackie?
Well, as your CEO, I would have expected to actually have some sort of an ex officio role in the committee. I think that's an important way for me to serve as a resource. I don't think it's good to be assuming that your CEO is just like any other staff person. I do think there is a different level of responsibility and a different level of resource that your CEO represents. And so I found Curtis's line of questioning kind of interesting. And as you were describing the committee, I had actually been hoping to hear something like an ex officio role for me as CEO. It's kind of unusual for board members to actually do this kind of work in an organization for an organization.
No, it's not. No, it's not unusual for board members to be involved in studying their organization. It's not unusual at all. In fact, large and small organizations often use the board in order to excite much more information from them. But please continue. I'm sorry. You were saying about an ex officio role.
We have some different experiences on that. I just would have found an ex officio role for me to be quite logical. When I look back over various studies that I've participated with in the city government and things over the last 20 years, that model would not have been surprising to me. I want to make sure you have information. For example, do you have the full list of the membership of the Equity Council?
Yes.
Okay, because not all of them have worked for the library for 5 years, but maybe you.
That's the reason. That's the reason why I said they had to be at least 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just, I would want to have a sense that I was being fully utilized as your CEO, and that you had a level of respect and confidence in me as your CEO that would make you want to have me helping to achieve this. So that's all.
That's appreciated. Thank you very much, Jackie. Our experiences are different, just as you noted. I have no problem in making sure that we speak with you and let you know how things are moving along. Garrett has approached me and asked if he could be a part, and I see him as serving in an ex officio capacity, being able to provide information as necessary.
So with the committee meet, like would they meet, would it be like a monthly or how would you see that going, Dr. Matata?
As soon as I'm able to get back off the vacation, that's on Monday, I'm going to get in contact with and look through all of the choices and individuals. But the main thing is to make sure that the group is acceptable to you and to Pat beforehand, before actually setting up dates for meetings, because it'll have to depend upon their schedules as well. My hope is for us to have bi-weekly meetings so that we can get this process moving very rapidly at first. And then as we start solidifying all of the approaches that we want to use in the different methodologies, and making sure that we consult with Jackie as the CEO and Garrett and those individuals who are in administrative capacities, but making sure that we do that shortly within the first couple of months. I want us to hit the ground running. And if we can, within that first couple of months, meet every other week so that we can move very aggressively on this study.
I agree with that because, you know, there's a lot of information, a lot of things to cover in a
Absolutely.
relatively short period of time.
Exactly.
And what I would like to do before our July meeting, have an action item on the agenda. I would, see if we can put that on there. So at least we know that there's going to be a committee formed. Names have already been given to the, Equity Diversity Committee. And then, we can push it onto the full board, for an action item at our next meeting. So at least, people know, at least with this meeting alone, that we're already making headway. You've already identified a committee, a proposed committee with everyone who will be involved in all the different community outreach programs, not programs, but community liaisons that would be on this committee, not only from IUPUI, but from the Equity Council, and from the library background. So I think at least we have a general idea of how everything is going to go pushing forward. And then that committee will actually come back to this committee as far as when we start looking at finances and how we want to move forward with the different proposals. Is that what I'm kind of gathering?
You got it right on the head. The one thing that I would ask for is I am going to find out. I wanted to check and find out how much did the survey instrument and the staffing of this previous study, how much money did they actually charge the library for? Do you know offhand, Jackie?
Are you talking about the engagement study that we did, Dr. Mercado, back in?
Yes.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I'll get that for you.
If you could, I would appreciate
Sure.
that. We could send it to this committee so we know what were they really expending and what were they actually doing. I saw the survey and it made me feel as if they were trying to do engagement work, but I wondered, oh, Catherine is here. Hello, Catherine, how are you?
Perhaps Catherine will remember that fee.
Catherine, do you recall?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, it ran about 17,000.
And we did get a number of recommended action items and recommended priorities from them. And we did not pay them for any subsequent work related to that. We used those summaries and prioritized recommendations and things as we went around the system and met with every single supervisory group of staff to talk through action items that particular team felt would help them achieve the results that were most relevant to the concerns from their group. It was very, very sliced and diced so that the action items were customized to the prioritized concerns from that team. And I don't know if you've had a chance to see that.
I read it carefully, and I found it very, very much about an administrative purview rather than a purview that really gathered an understanding of a rich understanding from multiple sectors. You're right, it's sliced and diced, but then the follow-up was recommended that there were many, I think there were 6 different recommendations to take their classes, to take this workshop, to take this, to take this. So they were setting it up to make sure, and anybody could look at it and see that very easily.
That is what we did.
No, I'm not saying that you did because I didn't see that follow-up.
No,
what I'm saying is that what I saw in the document itself and its follow-up to it were recommendations for that purpose. That's what I'm saying. Not that you did that, but that's what I saw in terms of their recommendations, that these classes and workshops be taken.
Was that like for the whole staff, or was that, so this was the survey done in 2017. And so was that
study, right, which was really
okay? So was that, so is that where, was there any, I guess, additional discussion out of that survey? Is that where the equity training came from, or what all came from that?
There were a series of discussions and meetings held with each unit, whether it was a branch staff or whether it was a team that had a supervisor. We met with each individual group and talked about their results, which were a compilation of what those individual staff had shared. And then because the consultant helped us identify areas of concern or priority in each of those little groups, we were able to talk to the group about what kind of actions did they feel would help meet their needs and address the concerns they had. So these conversations were different with each group. Some group may have identified breakdowns in communication within their department. Another group may have identified a need for staff to have more training so they could have promotional opportunities. It was different in each group, depending on what the staff had said their needs and concerns were. So that
Okay.
follow-up went on for a whole year after the study.
Okay, so I think what Dr. Murtado was probably saying that does look like probably from an administrative lens of how that could be done as you're looking at the breakdown of staffing needs and training and try to move people through. You know, how can you set people up for promotions? I see that, but then probably this one probably going to be a little bit more focused on, from what we're hearing, like internal lenses as it relates to diversity and equity, maybe that could be an issue within staff itself. Okay. I mean, but the good thing is that survey from 2017 is a good start to at least identify what the staff was trying to gear toward with, you know, promotions of people, the training of people. But now, as we move forward with this here, it's probably a little bit digging a little bit deeper into some of the concerns that we've seen with staff. Maybe not on this level, which will probably overlap, you know, into some of the stuff that was taken by the 2017 study. Is that how you see it, Dr. Murtado?
That's exactly what I think is important. A climate study is different from an engagement study. And you've hit it on the head again, Curtis. This idea of paying attention to what the staff are experiencing and that they are really talking very honestly about what are the things that they see that need to change, but also our community. You know, the institution is a public institution. And so we have got to pay attention to what are external folks saying, not just the administrators going and talking to their staff about what's going to change, but really what does it mean when we talk about equity of voice, so that the voices of individuals get surfaced and we affect change with goals and opportunities to really make that kind of difference. And I think if things had been somewhat improved, we would not be at this point we're at now. You know, there's a reason why we're at this point now. And I'm not sure of what that reason is. And so the study itself, a climate study itself of the processes that are going on need to be uncovered so that we can make a difference. You know, and it can't be the same way that supervisors go and talk and very nicely and thoughtfully, of course, with their teams. But sometimes that doesn't get to the root problems, you know, and if folks are feeling like I can't speak, there's a reason why. And so how do we affect a climate so that it supports the equity of voices and that it actually gets to some of the root problems? Otherwise, we'll be back at the same place again months from now. And we don't want that. We have committed as a board to the larger public, we will present and lead change. And so this process is one of really affecting the work in a different way.
Right. And I can see this in the long run, looking at different policies that are put in place. I know that the library has a policy that's put in place for employees to have grievances and stuff like that, but maybe that needs to be tweaked a little bit, you know what I mean? So that, you know, there'll be more input by people wanting to come forward, you know, through the normal process that it should go through within the library and the organization.
And that people don't feel like they have to hold back and say something. You know, I was
Mhm.
just recently contacted by a person who's a staff member, and they said that they were contacted by their supervisor, and their supervisor said, "You told Dr. Murtada such and such a thing. So now this is what the result is." And I was like,
Mhm.
wow, are you serious? Why would
Mhm.
that supervisor go and tell that person that you are now being accused of telling me something? That's
Mhm.
very problematic. That's
Mhm.
truly problematic. It's unfair for a supervisor to feel like they must go and tell that person, now I know you told Dr. Murtada such and such. Well,
Mhm.
here you go. Now go get this done for me. You know, that
Mhm.
kind of relationship is truly problematic. And as a
Right.
member of the board and having worked with you, Curtis and Pat and others, we should never have anybody feeling like they have to come through a back door, talk to one of us and say, uh-oh, you know, I shouldn't have told you anything. I should not have said a thing because
No.
now my
Right.
supervisor is telling me that I have now told what I should not have told. You know,
Mhm.
that's
Right.
truly troubling. And when I do climate studies all around schools and other places, whenever I'm called upon to do a climate study, I really work for people to be able to come and talk to me and say to me whatever they're feeling, knowing that I will try to affect change. And
Mhm.
this is a larger issue because we had people coming to us at this board meeting saying, Jose, good person over there at in the judges' suites. Here are the problems, here are the problems, here are the problems, and here are the problems. And so if we were really thinking about how to keep this confidential so that nobody could come and talk to us, that would be a problem. But if we're
Mhm.
going to say to the staff and to our community that this is a process that you will not have to feel like a supervisor is going to come back to you and tell you, oh, you told them such and such.
That's
That
right.
is truly what we don't want to happen. And
Right.
I was disgusted.
And
I was totally disgusted when this person came to me and told me that they found that the supervisor found out that I said something, and now that person has to go and fetch whatever that person wants them to do. You know,
mhm.
it's very, very troubling. I
And
wanted to
Right.
contact that
And
supervisor directly. And then I said, that's not my place as a board member. That's not my
mhm.
place. But I can tell you that makes me, every time I see that person, I'm looking and thinking, wow, this is the kind of person they really are.
Mhm. And I think too, I mean, and that should never happen, but
It
I
shouldn't.
think too, we have to look too as this committee goes forward and how we, shift the direction. We have to look at ways that it has to be brought to our attention to what's going on, but how do we actually address that with action items that are in policy? I mean, somebody shouldn't be afraid to say something to us, but they also have to know too, there's a process in place, but you know what I mean? There's an internal
that's
process that they're to go by, because if we don't have that, then there's no need for any management whatsoever. But people should not be afraid to say something, what I mean, in fear of retribution of what took place. And I
Mhm.
think that I don't know who that person was, how that dialogue happened, but I think it's I don't know if it's been brought to the CEO, if it was brought to other management within the organization. You see what I'm saying? Because we have to stop that. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because
And
if
you know,
they're
sometimes policies, you mentioned it
happens all the
earlier,
time.
policies sometimes need to change. And what those policies and procedures, not just policies, but procedures are extremely important. And I won't have people coming to me or to Pat or to you or to Jose or to any of the to Hope and saying this is what I see, and then feeling like, okay, I'm going to have to deal with retribution
Yeah,
afterwards.
that's right.
right.
That
Mhm.
needs to be made clear to every supervisor, to our CEO, to every supervisor, that
Exactly.
this work is not to be treated as a punitive measure or approach. And if somebody
Right.
comes and says they have not gotten paid or that they got a 2% after having years of working in the library, and then they are seen as telling something, then that is problematic. And then treated
Right.
it with disregard and disrespect hereafter. You know,
Mhm.
that kind of procedure is truly problematic.
Right.
And I am not one to sit back and let people come to me and say stuff and then expect for them to have to cover their behinds afterwards.
Right.
This is
'Cause
not
then
ethical.
they'll be afraid of the process in which we're trying to put in
Exactly.
place. Right. Yes.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that 100%. Okay, well, I think we're coming up on an hour here, but I think we covered a lot of different things. I mean, there's a lot of, did you have something else, Dr. Payne? I didn't
No,
want to
I'm
rush
looking
anybody
at
off.
Jose's question in the chat.
Mhm.
That's what I was looking at. He wanted to
Action
know if
item for others be ready for our July meeting for the full board. Thank you, Jose. What I want to have is making sure that I have the names of the individuals that have contacted them, that I have a brief bio, and that I run by it through Pat and Curtis and Hope beforehand. And of course, making sure that Jackie, as the CEO, gives her understanding or her insight about whatever. But I want to make sure that for the full board meeting, that at least being able to give the names of individuals and an outline of what are some of the first steps, meeting every 2 weeks for the first, I'm thinking maybe the first 3 weeks, the first 3 months, but I have to check with the board to find out and that committee to find out if that's even a possibility. I do have one other item, Jose. I think that this board needs to look at the previous engagement study. We have several new members on it, and we need to look at that engagement study because I think it has some good points that Jackie was referencing earlier. And if we could look at that as a part of our commitment to seeing what the past was and looking at what we want for the future. The past is, that's a good way of reflection to understand what was the past and where we're going so that our energy can be enabled by understanding what was determined in the past. Jose, I was referencing that because I think that's a decision that you have to lead the board through.
May I say something?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah, of course. That's do we get that action or that study that you're referring to, Dr. Matata?
Catherine sent that to me about a week ago. Thank you, Catherine. And I had a chance, it might have been a little bit longer than that. I had a chance to read it carefully and thoughtfully. Okay. And I thought, I wonder if the board, because we have several new members, if they have had a chance to even look at this, and I think it might be useful.
I think it's fine to go out. I don't, if your committee, Curtis, feels it should go out.
yes.
Listen, I'm a big believer in the more knowledge you got, the better. So, you know, if we don't know the past, we're doomed to repeat it sometimes, you know?
Good point. Jackie, can that study be sent out to everyone?
Certainly, we can do that.
Thank you, much appreciated. You're muted, Curtis.
I was saying I apologize. My computer froze again. I'm like, I don't know what the devil's going on here. But
Well, as long as it freezes on that smile is one that you ought to capture and put on your photo. It was good. If there's anything else that you think I need to be able to present at the full board, Jose, let me know. Again, I've been on vacation for the past couple of days and I come off on Sunday and I'm hitting the ground Monday on this work. And so I can send you a couple of the things that I want to present for the board, if that's okay with you.
Listen, if I may speak again, Curtis, if that's okay.
No, go ahead, sir.
My only thing is if as long as the committee feels that we're moving along at a pace that is reasonable and that we're not losing sight or not going too fast and missing stuff, and that if people come to us and we're comfortable as a board saying we're moving at the pace that we need to move, because you were pretty adamant. I agree that this can't take 4 or 5 months to get to step one, you know?
No.
So I want to make sure that the full board and the members of the committee are comfortable with the pace that we're approaching. And that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Jose. Much appreciated.
All right. Well, I think we covered a lot of stuff, and I think this is wonderful about this, you know, the board identifying this committee that you've come up with, Dr. Murtada, at our next board meeting. At least people know there's things that are happening. And people are viewing this committee as well today. So I think we're on the right track, and I look forward to us at our next board meeting, pushing forward and then hearing some more about some of the things you were just talking to Justinius about. So is there anything else?
No, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate all of the cooperation. It will help to make this a good one. I am giving you my sincere commitment and a real, it's almost like a covenant to do this in the best way possible and to use the resources in the best way possible to make this useful, but also to affect change.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Very good.
Yeah,
Thank you, Curtis, for your leadership through this meeting. Very good.
Well, thank you. Well, if there's
Appreciate it.
nothing else, we'll go ahead and get off of here. Is there anything else with anyone else that's on here? No. All right. Well, the meeting's adjourned. You guys have